Alright, we are ready to begin our next lesson. Today's learning goals is students will be able to subtract fractions with different denominators. We've already previously learned how to add fractions with different denominators, and we found out that it is very similar to adding fractions that have the same denominator. The same thing is true for subtracting fractions. Very similar to subtracting fractions when they have the same denominator. The main difference is that we have to make sure that we change the denominator to be the same before we do any subtraction. So we're going to have to find a common denominator. We're going to have to find the equivalent fractions. What would those fractions be having the same value but with the new denominator that we found? Then we switch back to the same process when we have the same denominator now. We're going to subtract the numerators. We're going to keep the denominators. And then if it's possible, we're going to simplify our answer. Alright, so we're going to do a few sample problems today and give you an opportunity to see what it looks like, and then we'll do some practice problems on Moodle. Okay, so the first practice problem we're going to do is 2/3 minus 1/4. Again, regardless of whether we're adding or subtracting fractions with different denominators, we're going to write the numbers one on top of the other. It's just easier to show our work this way, so we're going to go ahead and do that when we're doing our work. The first thing that we have to do is find a common denominator. We look at which of the two denominators, which one is larger. We see that 4 is larger than 3, so we're going to use the multiples of 4 to find out which one 3 can be divided evenly into. So we look at 4 is the first multiple of 4. We say, can 3 go into 4 evenly? No, it can't. So we go to the next one, 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Can 3 go into 8 evenly? No, it can't. So we're going to go and do the next multiple of 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Can 3 go into 12 evenly? Yes, it can. So we know now that 12 is going to be our common denominator. Now we need to find equivalent fractions in order to subtract the numbers. So we're going to look, 4 times 12 is 3. And so we do 1 times 3, which is 3 to get the numerator. 3 times 4 is 12, and so we have to do the times 4 on the top. 2 times 4 is 8. So now we have our two fractions that have the same denominator. Now we can subtract just like we normally would. 8 minus 3 is 5. Keep the denominator. And then the last step is to check to see, can we simplify this? Can 5 be simplified with 12? And no, it can't. And so 5/12 is going to be our final answer. Alright, let's do our next sample problem. Our next sample problem is 5/6 minus 2/4. Okay, so again we start off the problem by writing the fractions one on top of the other. The first step is to find the common denominator. So we identify which one of the denominators is largest. 6 is largest, so we use the multiples of 6 to find out what our common denominator is. So we look at 6, which is the first multiple. Does 4 go into 6 evenly? No, it doesn't. So then we find the next multiple of 6, which is 12. Does 4 go into 12? Yes, it does. And so our common denominator is going to be 12. Then we find our equivalent fractions. 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 5 times 2 is 10. So now we have our equivalent fractions. We subtract our fractions just like we did when they had the same denominator. So we do 10 minus 6 is 4. Keep the same denominator. So now we have 4/12. And the last step is to see if we can simplify. Can we simplify 4 and 12? Yes, we can. We can divide 4 out of both of those numbers. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And so the simplified answer is 1/3. Okay, so we have one more sample problem that we're going to do. This sample problem is 3/4 minus 3/5. So again, we write our fractions one on top of the other. First step is to go ahead and find the common denominator. 5 is larger than 4, so we're going to use multiples of 5. The first multiple of 5 is 5, so does 4 go into 5? No, it doesn't. So we go to the next one. 5 times 2 is 10. Does 4 go into 10? No, it doesn't. We go 5 times 3 is 15. Does 4 go into 15? No, it doesn't. So we go to the next one. 5 times 4 is 20. Does 4 go into 20? Yes, it does. And so 20 is going to be our common denominator. So now we want to find our equivalent fractions. 5 times 4 is equal to 20. So we do times 4 on the top. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 5 is 20. So we have to do times 5 on the top, and 3 times 5 is 15. Now we subtract normally. So 15 minus 12 is 3. Keep the same denominator. And then our last step is to simplify if we can. And we check to see, can 3 go into 20? Is there something we can divide out of both of those numbers? And no, there's nothing that we can divide out of both those numbers. So our simplest answer is 3/20. All right, so now it is time for you to do your practice problems. Again, your practice problems are on Moodle. So go ahead and sign into Moodle or go back to Moodle and work the practice problems. Make sure that you get at least an 80%. If you don't, go back and retry those problems. And then after you've finished the problems, you need to rate yourself on our scale and write that up next to the heading on your notes so that you can see how much growth that you make later on as we're reviewing this. That's it for tonight's notes. Please bring any questions that you have to class and have a great evening.